especially appreciated. I'm Ann Little Roberts. I am been on the city council for 4 years, and so took the opportunity to run for mayor with Mayor Tammy deciding not to run again. I think that Meridian is obviously doing very well because we are growing, and our growth shows that we are doing well. And so I would really like to have the opportunity to continue the things that we are doing really well. Open space, parks. We are a great place to live, work, and raise a family, but I think there's things that we can do better. We can be at the table with those that are making decisions for us. Idaho Department of Transportation, Ada County Highway District, and the school district. It is critical that we partner with those that are making the decisions with and for our citizens. We've got to have that citizen input. The growth that we are experiencing has very unintended consequences, including safety, which is one of my focuses, because we are seeing our response times diminish, and we have got to stay a safe community. We've also got to be very connected and representing our citizens across the valley well, to Boise, to Nampa, to Caldwell, and our other citizens in the area, because we're all in this together regarding roads and the growth of this Treasure Valley. But it's an honor to be here tonight. Thank you so much for your attention.
Our next candidate, Gina Johnson.
Can you all hear me all right? All right. My name is Jeana Johnson. I thank you for the opportunity for Mike invited me to this forum, and I want to say that as a resident of Meridian, Mayor Tammy has done an awesome job so far, and I may not be may not be someone with political experience, but that doesn't mean I can bring something new. Today we have a full crowd looking to wonder who they're going to elect as their mayor, and the big thing I see is that there's a disconnect. We need somebody who understands what is going on, but is also willing to understand the perspective of who is being impacted. Today, we see a lot of people, politicians, who are not necessarily experienced, and I'm willing to take that risk because I was asked to run. And Meridian, I feel, could be the middle of the valley, the bipartisan spot that it could be, to give citizens a hope, not just here in our state, not just here in our county, but here in the United States, that having a little guy at the big table, even if that little guy has no experience, we got to have representation, and we can't have representation without having somebody who actually knows what those people are going through. Now, I know that there's not a lot of faith in me, especially there's that question of, will I be able to handle the job? And just like anything, this job is a hard one. But like any job, there's always a risk, and I'm willing to do what it takes to make sure that I don't bring my own passion. I'm just the megaphone that everybody wants to have in there, myself as representing for you as mayor. Thank you.
Our next candidate, Joe Palmer. Sorry.
Thanks, Nate.
Yep.
What was your last name, Nate? Sorry. Thank you for coming tonight, and thanks to the MIAC Council. I've had the opportunity of meeting a lot of them recently, and I've been hitting all of them up to be sure and sign up for the PAGE program in the legislature. Having working with the kids in the legislature, I see great things to come. Sometimes you get a little bit of concern about the next generation, but if we have kids like these running the state and the kids in the PAGE program, I think it's awesome. And so I've been hitting them up, hoping that they'll keep moving on with their government service. It's very important that they stay and learn and have a better understanding of government and how it works. The reason I'm running for mayor, it's my community. I love this community. My kids are here. My grandkids are here. The opportunities for them are here. The mayor and the city council have done a fabulous job over the years. They've created a city that everyone wants to move to. My biggest concern with that is what we will do when it does slow down, because the time will come. And believe me, it's not the bad times that get you in trouble, it's the good times, and you need to be prepared for those. And so I would hope that we would be able to be careful with the government and let it not get out of control. When we have all this tax revenue coming in, we need to be careful with property taxes and hold them down as much as we possibly can. And I'm hoping that I will have that opportunity, and thank you for this opportunity this evening.
Our next candidate, Robert Simison.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here in front of everybody tonight. Having these type of opportunities is very rare in the city. In fact, it's only the second time that we've all been together in front of the community in this way. I'm running to be mayor because I care about this community. I've served for the last 12 years as Mayor Tammy's chief of staff. I understand our city. I've been part of building what we have here in terms of our premier community. I know the directors. I know our city employees. I know the values we have. I also understand that the people that are going to be going to the ballot, they're here to elect a CEO of the community. That's also a CEO of a city that has over 500 employees, 9 different departments that they have to oversee. That's personnel, that's budget, those are policies. It's also vision. I've been proud to be part of that. I've been at the leadership table my entire 12 years that I've been here and part of what we've developed as a community. But it doesn't stop there. You know, we have to continue to move forward and progress as a community. And how do we go about doing that? Well, it starts with making sure that we can move around the community easier. We got to get people to go from point A to point B easier in terms of making investments in our sidewalks, in terms of pathways, and our road improvement projects for the area. It also does mean working more closely with our partners that range anywhere from ACHD, the school district, Western Ada Recreation District, and the Cemetery District, so that we can put together plans that the services that they provide are going to be there for our residents who call Meridian home. I believe that, as mayor, the buck stops in that office for all those areas. We can't just shirk it off to another government entity and say they're in charge of roads, they're in charge of schools, they're in charge of libraries. We need to be able to step forward and take credit and blame when those issues become difficult for our residents to enjoy and work more closely with the people who are in those leadership areas.
Our next candidate, Shaun Wardle.
Hi, I'm Shaun Wardle, and I'm running to be the mayor of my hometown right here in Meridian. Recently, I attended a community block party, and one of our citizens came and introduced herself to me. She said that she had lived in the neighborhood that I grew up in, which is just down Cherry Lane behind the Jacksons. We lived right across the street from Mayor Grant Kingsford. And she had taken aerobics classes from my mother. And as a teacher, it was great for her to go into class and after a full day of teaching, have someone else lead. And then she introduced me to her initiative, and she asked if I would support it. And it's puncture bine eradication. She and a walking partner have been walking across this community and pulling these invasive weeds. And I was immediately on board. So as a child of the 80s, my bike was my primary mode of transportation. For the youth members in the audience, CET is a historical reference. But if you got a goat head in your tire, it was an all-day experience to get that repaired. And if it was really bad, you had to come down to Westby's here to get your bike repaired. So I tell that story not to launch my goat head initiative, although it is important to me, but it's to talk about perspective. My family built a business here in this community, a very successful business, the Idaho Athletic Club, and we had 350 people, thousands of members, and millions of dollars in revenue. But I needed to remember that that business was built on leg kicks because people would go to class with my mother. And that's why I'm running to be the mayor of my hometown, to bring my business skills, my business experience, and my commitment to this community to the office of mayor.
Thank you very much, candidates. The following questions have been submitted to, vetted by, and tweaked a little by the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And our first question, what is your understanding of local government and what qualifies you to serve as mayor? Jeana Johnson, your first answer.
Well, local government has been quite the topic, hasn't it, for the last couple of years. We see local government as part of the beginning steps to reach a lot of parts of the different levels of federal and state. But at the same time, we see local government as our first step to reach. And that is something that I believe is not working very well. Local government is, it's not a business. and it is one at the same time. It needs to be a position where people who work for the local government, people who run it, don't necessarily look at it as just a set of numbers, a set of statistics. They're people. They serve the people that they are elected to by. And I may not be qualified, but I was part of the mayor's teen council in Nampa from 2006 to 2010 with Mayor Tom Dale. And I do know one thing, that the connection between local government starts with the voter, but not to reach the voter in a traditional way, but to do it in a way that makes them still remain them. I mean, you can't be the mayor and still be above them. You need to be with the people, not above them. And I hope to show in the next hour that I can bring that perspective. I know that, there's a lot of questions whether or not that I can do that, but I hope that by being honest about the risk of actually winning, as well as the rewards of actually proving that my generation and the millennial generation can represent at some point in the near future, we can do a job just as well as anyone else who has been in office.
Joe Palmer, your answer.
Understanding of local government comes from having been a business owner. Thank you. I've been a business owner in Meridian for the last 33 years. I see both the good and the bad that comes from government. It has both, believe me. The opportunities for businesses needs to thrive, and local government needs to help it, not hinder it. The reason I'm qualified, anyone in this room is qualified if they're an electorate in the city of Meridian to be the mayor of Meridian. If you have your heart in it, you're qualified for it. And I would encourage everyone to be a part of their government. The most important part is the proper role of government and what it does and what it doesn't do.
Robert Simison.
Local government is where the rubber hits the road. It's where we provide services to the community that they expect and that they're willing to pay for. I've talked to a lot of people over the last 6 months, and I've talked to some very conservative people. Some people have said, local government is where I know what I'm getting for my money. I send the money to the federal government, I don't know what I get. I send it to the state, maybe I have an idea. The money that goes to the city, I see that in action every day. I see the police on the roads. I see the fire department responding. I go to the parks and I enjoy those for my amenities, and my water and sewer runs. That's what's really what your local government is truly providing. We have a lot of other local government partners that help us deliver other services to the community that the community expects. I think our community expects to have libraries. I think our community expects to have schools that are not overcrowded. That's what local government is in a nutshell. And when I first started, one of the things I got to do was I got to work with some neighbors and a business owner for a new property that was being developed at 10 Mile and Cherry. Local government was working together to help find ways to mitigate the sound and the light from that McDonald's that was going in at that location. That's what local government can do. Now, why am I qualified? I think I'm qualified because 12 years as the mayor's chief of staff, I know what the job is. I know what the job is not. I'm there to help this city run effectively and deliver those services to the community. I know the strategic plan. I've been part of help developing that. I've been part of making sure that our community remains debt-free. That's why I think I'm qualified to step into and lead this community moving forward through a time where on-the-job training with all the growth that's occurring is not what we need.
Shaun Wardle.
I was just out in the hallway talking to some of our youth members and explaining that I wasn't always interested in government. In fact, as a young person, I started thinking about running for office, and my dad said, "Hey, go talk to Charlie Roundtree." Charlie was one of my baseball coaches and served this community in a number of areas, including the city council. And Charlie and I sat down, and he said, "Have you lost your mind?" And once we confirmed that I had, he explained to me that local government was not about fame and glory, but it was about service and about serving your community. And then I got elected to the city council and did just that, and served with a number of great people and did some good things for this community in its early stages of growth. And then I moved to the Urban Renewal Agency, where we set the foundation for downtown, and we're starting to see some of the fruits of those efforts come. And downtown Meridian can and will be a wonderful place here in our community. And so I have a deep understanding of all levels of what's happening in this community. But right now, Meridian needs a CEO. It needs my business experience to come in and take a look at what we're doing and make sure that we've got a great environment for the future generations. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because, frankly, I owe. When my family was building this business, they didn't always have time to coach Little League or sit on councils or commissions. And so it's my job to pay that back, those people that came before me, and make sure that we've got a great community for our children.
Ann Little Roberts.
Thank you. I believe that local government is the most critical government for the people because it's closest to the people. I think that as the citizens of this town, it's critical that you are well represented by what your local government is doing and how that money is being spent. With my time on City Council in 4 years, I have learned the ins and outs of City Hall and how things get done here, but yet my eyes are still fresh. I would like the opportunity to share how things can be done differently. With my time at the City Council, I ran the City Council, with the time at the Meridian Chamber, I was there for over 6.5 years. And we worked very closely with the city. But things can be done differently, and it's very important that the business community has a voice as well, because that's the backbone of our economy. And I believe that between the two, my time on City Council and my time at the Chamber, I've got a different experience and a different set of eyes than anyone else does. Thank you.
Our next question. How do you plan to improve Meridian? What new programs do you plan to bring to better the community? First answer, Joe Palmer.
Thank you. I think as far as new programs, I don't have a vision for great new programs coming. We have lots of programs already. I think if you start new programs, all you're going to do is expound government. We just need to get out of the way so businesses can do programs. Businesses can set those opportunities, not the government.
Time left on the clock. Okay, Robert Simison.
One of the things I think we need to do is we need to double our pathways in this community over the next 5 years. You know, we got to be ambitious about what we want to bring to our community to allow our residents to get around from A and B. So is that a new program? I don't know that's a new program, but it's a goal that we need to set. We need to connect our sidewalks so that kids can get from where they want to go to where they need to be. I was on Victory Road the other day, and right there when you come down a little hill between Meridian and Locust Grove, the sidewalk comes to a dead end. You know, the type of things we need to be focused on is how do we make that connection. It was a rare opportunity where I saw someone going up that and someone coming down at the same time. So you actually had a traffic jam on a road, on a hill, with no sidewalks. We can be better than that. So those are the types of things we need to look at, but it doesn't stop in our parks. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like to have to, when we do our flushing in the brown water that exists in our water system. You know, we can accelerate our programs to put in filtration on our wells so that we can eliminate that from what people have to experience. Those are the little types of things that we can do to improve the community that we live in so that those things that people just don't like to have to experience can go away.
Shaun Wardle.
I believe that government should be transparent. And my administration will create the first Office of Government Accountability so that people in Meridian have a place to go, not to just find out where their dollars are spent, but what's going on in our community. I believe that we need to have a vibrant downtown. And we've got a great start, but we've got a ways to go. We need innovative businesses that draw people down here, and we need great places for people to eat and shop that will keep them here. Our park system is robust, but we need to add certain things. We've got to have an opportunity for all of our generations to be able to enjoy those parks. I think that we need to add a number of dog parks and amenities like that. We need wider roads and signalized intersections so those in our community can get around. In addition to that, I think there are a couple things that we need to stop doing. We need to stop overspending. We need So take a look at where we're truly spending those tax dollars and find a way to use them more efficiently. In addition to that, I think that we need to stop chip sealing our roads. Meridian is an urban environment, and that process is messy at best. And so my administration would work to stop chip seal.
Gallery is reminded to remain calm. And Little Roberts.
Wow, I don't know that I want to follow chip sealing, but I think there are things that we can do to improve Meridian, and I don't want to say that I wouldn't entertain other ideas that came along, but right now I think we've got the tools that we need to continue to make Meridian a great place to live. We've got some wonderful public-private partnerships happening in downtown so that we are going to see that thriving downtown in our lifetime. And I think that that is critical. We've also got great things in place with our parks and our pathways to continue to connect this community. But it's all about collaboration. We have got to be at the table and talking to all of us that are involved in our roads, in our parks, in our connectivity within all that we do. And so I think the theme of my campaign has been connecting the community. And I think we need to continue to use the tools that we have in a more effective and efficient manner, and that will help us to continue to improve this wonderful place that we live.
Jeana Johnson.
Well, I definitely think that chip sealing is needed every now and then, but not every 6 months or a year, right? I mean, that's a waste of money, especially when we're building lots of new roads, and we already have enough roads to take care of. Programs and services is something that, you know, we already have a number, but there's always room for improvement. Mayor Tammy has done a great job so far with maintaining a lot and improving and helping us grow, but there's a lot that's still needed. Our infrastructure on our roads and our transportation and the ability for our police and fire to really come and respond quickly is one thing, but to be able to have the involvement of police and fire is just the post-emergency response. What about the pre-emergency response? We need to take care of our citizens who are struggling with the cost of living. So we need to figure out how we're going to get them employed in local environments here in the city, as well as we need to give them an ability to reach the other neighboring cities in a way that's more affordable for them. We can't just have the roads and the safety and elements of parks. We need to be able to make sure that those elements, those budgeting requirements, we partner with private investors, but we also make sure that public funds are being used with public interest. And we're not just paying for safety and those other alternatives of services, but we're looking at how they're being used already and what can be improved and what can be prototyped for something new and different, as well as something that is already working, doesn't need to be improved or replaced altogether.
All right, candidates, the following question will have a 1-minute response. That means you're looking for the red tag. 1-minute response for the question. Do you think it's important to have a youth voice in government? If so, in what ways will you include them? I will remind you all, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is present. Robert Simison.
Yes, we need to continue to make sure the youth voice is present, and that does mean continue with MIAC. But when I've talked to MIACers, what I've told them is I can't say that MIAC's going to look exactly the same as it did under Mayor Tammy. It's got to also work for me and my family. I do have young kids. So whether that's adjusting times, looking at what type of activities they do, but they need to have a voice in our government. That is MIAC. That is remaining on our commissions to have a seat at the table and to give their perspective.
Shaun Wardle.
Thank you. I believe that youth involvement in all aspects of our community is very important, and we'll continue that. I have a 15-year-old at Renaissance, and one of the things that she and I were talking about, I'm reading a book called Words That Work, and she told me, especially when I come home and I'm talking with her about school, that I talk in business speak, that I talk like a business person. and it doesn't resonate with her, and that I need to find a way to communicate some of my ideas in a way that she can understand that. And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, you know what? I thought I communicated really well with my family, but I believe that we can all learn by talking to the next generation and then getting their feedback.
And Little Roberts.
I think having our youth involved is critical. I've been a huge supporter of MIAC while I've been on the council, and while I was at the chamber, I brought a program called Young Entrepreneurs Academy to the Valley, where students could become their own business owner in the course of a school year. So I think it's critical to continue MIAC. And if I were mayor, MIAC would only look different if MIAC wanted it to look different. We've got the largest MIAC west of the Mississippi, and I think that it's critical that they can run their own program because it has been extremely successful, and I would be extremely supportive of it to continue.
Jeana Johnson.
Well, I definitely am a youth. I think I'm just a little bit older, though, so hopefully I get this right. I think that we need to involve youth at every level, not just in MIAC, but in every department. If I became mayor, I would not just be the mayor that everybody knows, but I would have game and Twitch with the mayor because, you know, there's lots of people who love video games as well as those who have a fan of or a passion of comics and stuff. So if the mayor gets that, then it's going to be a whole lot easier to adjust and work with youth. But I also believe that the communication department, they need to have a lot more intensive work with the youth because the youth is our voice. They may not be voters yet, but they will be. And so if I became mayor, I would have every youth in MIAC as well as in the school district get the opportunity to work one-on-one with each department and with each communication department so that way we can do things better.
Joe Palmer.
Figure out how to work the microphone here. I think I made it clear in my opening statement how important it is to have kids involved. The most local unit of government is the family, and this city is all about family. Families move here because they like the people that are here and they want to be around that. And in that local unit of government is kids, and they are extremely important. And they need to be aware of what's going on in their government, and they need to be part of it. And it's absolutely imperative.
Our next question is 2 minutes for a response. How will you work with the state to solve some of our local traffic and transportation problems? First answer, Shaun Wardle.
We need to start talking about traffic, stop talking about transportation. Meridian is a suburban environment, and we need wider roads and signalized intersections. And the question was, how do you work with the state? Well, the first thing that you do is you don't build a highway to nowhere without widening Shinden, 2026. It's imperative that our community get its fair share and more of transportation dollars. We have all of the valley's traffic going to and through Meridian, not just to shop, but to get to work and to get home. And so it is imperative that we start making improvements in this community or we're all going to be sitting in congestion until the next election.
And Little Roberts.
Well, I think it's imperative that we are talking with our legislators and that we are at the table. And I think that Mayor Tammy proved with the 10-mile intersection that the persistent, I would say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but the persistent mayor can work through things and get things done. And so I would be that persistent person working to get more of the funding for our city because we put forth a lot of money that does not come back to us, and we need a greater share of our return on investment.
Jeana Johnson.
We look at transportation as an obstacle as well as a need for a solution to fix it. I don't drive. I wish I could. I'm too scared to. And quite honestly, the roads are a lot dangerous. And we need to look at how we're funding transportation, but at the same time, we can't just be thinking all the time. We can't just act without thinking and think without acting. And public transportation is needed. There literally is nothing going on from now until 2021, when the next Valley Regional Transit route will be happening. We need something today, not something in 2021. A year may come before you know it, but that doesn't mean we need it now. So I propose that we use the $400,000 that we recently raised in tax dollars, that the Ada County commuter shuttles that are being used and just sitting on the lot waiting to be used. Everybody uses them in the morning and evening to get to and from work, but what if we could use them as a prototype to see if that route that Valley Regional Transit is going to use would actually work? We need to prototype solutions even if they're not permanent solutions, and we need to do something rather than nothing. And by working with ACHD, that is one element, but we also need to understand that other cities work with them and our city will work with them, but they're not always going to work with us. We need to look to unique solutions that are different. They may be different, but that doesn't mean they could work. We need a mayor who's willing to risk things, but also not risk everything. And if I became that mayor, I would hope to give you the guys that voice.
Joe Palmer.
Thank you. When it comes to transportation, it's a complicated issue. There's a lot to it. The money funnels down through the state and to the local units of government. There's certain percentages of it that have to be spent in cities, but that's not controlled by the city, that's controlled by ACHD. It's imperative that we work with ACHD and we don't fight ACHD. We need to work with ITD and ACHD. Over the past 8 years, I've chaired the House Transportation Committee. I understand the funding mechanisms and what you can do to move things around to be able to move yours forward faster. In the last 8 years, we've increased funding for transportation by 70%. Now that money needs to be spent correctly. As your mayor, we'll have the opportunity to work with ACHD and with ITD, and you have to have a good relationship with them. But if you work with them, you can get these roads done. You've heard here several times about that we need to widen the section roads out and have signalized lights. That's exactly right, 100% right. The fact is they don't have enough funding to take care of everything at once, so they do have to piece it together. So if they're piecing it together, we need to be at the table to tell them which pieces need to be done first so that we can do that. The money comes from growth, but it's behind. We don't pay for it in advance. There's no way of doing that. So we have to use that money as it comes forward, and we need to improve it. We've got 16 that's stopping at Chinden right now. I understand that's a bottleneck. The state right now is purchasing money to finish that road on 16 onto the freeway. As soon as that gets done, that'll take pressure off of it. Chinden is being widened, Meridian's being widened, all the roads are being widened. The key is the funding mechanism and how the local governments work with them. Most of the money for the entire state comes from Ada and Canyon County. It's pretty important that a large portion of that money gets spent in Ada and Canyon County.
Robert Simison.
We've been working with the state for the last 12 years to get the road projects that we need, whether that's Meridian Road interchange, 10-mile interchange, improvements on Eagle Road. It's also been working with our business community that are actually the ones that are going to be improving Chinden because the state doesn't allocate enough money. It has also brought improvements to Eagle Road because the state doesn't allocate enough money. So as a city, that has been what we have been doing. We've been working within the parameters that we have. But unfortunately, even recently, our ITD, local ITD, has not really been one that is working collaboratively unless we bring money to the table. They've made it very clear. If you want to see road improvements in Meridian, you're going to have to invest your local tax dollars to do that. So if we want improvements, if we want to under a road overpass, we're going to have to invest. And I think that that's a wise decision for us to make. We will need to make investments in road infrastructure if we want to see improvements to our local roadways or to the state facilities that are in Meridian. Long term, though, we need to be focused on other corridors. I mean, we talk about Highway 16, and yes, absolutely. Hopefully there will be a plan for that, and by the time I have grandkids, that road will be open at the cost that that's going to take. When the state can't widen 1 mile of Chinden at $10 million, how are they going to find $500 million to build that road? It's going to be a long time. But we need to have north-south connections in our community. That may mean we have to make improvements as a city along Locust Grove, Linder, some of those corridors that allow our residents to move north and south. In addition, we need to work with the state on the rail corridor. For whatever that becomes in terms of a transportation corridor, we need to work with the state of Idaho. They need to step up and work with the owners of that the railroads to develop a long-term plan for that corridor, because that is going to be vital to our long-term success as a valley. And if we just let it continue to sit idle the way it is, it's doing nobody any good. So that's one of the main things we need to work with the state on, is what that corridor is going to be like.
Thank you very much. Do you think it's important to work alongside Meridian's faith community? If so, how will you develop a relationship with local faith leaders? Ann Little Roberts, 1 minute.
I believe it's very critical to work alongside our faith leaders. Meridian's been a community that's been built on faith and those that have the beliefs that participate in church. And I think it's critical that we continue that. I've been a strong supporter and attender for the mayor's prayer breakfast. I just attended the faith leaders luncheon. I believe those things should continue on because that's a large part of our population that is represented by those faith leaders, and we need to continue those wonderful relationships.
Jeana Johnson.
I believe that faith is a big element to the success of our community as well as the success of how we grow. I, for one, don't think that we should not continue things, but I do think we need to look at how we force others to believe their beliefs. And for me, that is not why I'm here. That is not why I'm running. I'm representing everyone because I have experienced all different religions. And those who have different religions usually ask me, well, what primary religion am I? And it's, I don't pick any side because I can understand everybody's perspective. I don't force people to accustom to one belief, but I also respect those who want me to believe one way. I can see every way, but I also understand that not everybody can agree with me. And that's why, if I do run, I hope to have your vote for something that is different.
Thank you very much for your answer. Joe Palmer, 1 minute.
Thank you. The Constitution of the United States was developed upon the Ten Commandments. It is the most important document that we need to start with. Absolutely, it's imperative. If you look around this community, you'll see lots of churches, lots of different religions. It's absolutely imperative that we always work with them in government.
We're a community of family and faith. And having that relationship with our faith partners is critical because the government can't be there to solve all the problems neither, and we shouldn't be. But that's where we often rely upon our faith community to step in and help out some of those that are in greatest need. You look at some of the things that we have in our community. The Meridian Food Bank started from the work of a local church and has continued to be funded and partnered through them. Those are the types of things that the faith community can do in your community. But it always starts with a conversation. We need to continue to have those conversations, not just events, but actually sit down with them and talk about the needs in our community and what can they do? How can they help solve those needs of individuals so that we have people who are in need be helped and it doesn't have to come from the government?
Thank you, Robert Simison. Shaun Wardle.
Yes, I believe it's important to work with our faith community, as with everyone else in this community that has a vested interest. And one of the things that faith teaches us is to be inclusionary. And I think that our community needs to be inclusionary and needs to welcome everyone. And I'll work closely with those individuals that are doing great charitable works in this community to continue their efforts.
Our next question will be 2 minutes for a response. What is your solution? First answer, Jeana Johnson.
Infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about roads. I'm not just talking about public transportation and building. And that is the technology infrastructure that we have in place. We all rely on internet at some point, whether it's to address education, whether it's to fund grow your business, whether it's just to connect and watch something online. Our internet is something that isn't usually the typical thing one candidate would address, but I believe that is something that we could bring to the Valley. We need something that is different, and if I became mayor, I would hope to have a server farm here in South of Meridian because it's needed. It is something that we have. The closest servers we have are in Seattle, Salt Lake City, and the Bay Area. And I believe that if we have it here, not just our city will benefit, not just our residents, but everyone will benefit. And I know that it's something unusual and something that you probably expect a geek to say, but I know that everyone is tired of internet speeds that are slow. So hopefully that will help if you elected me.
Joe Palmer.
I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, since I decided to jump into this. And overwhelmingly, the people that come to me tell me the problem is transportation. Even the people that don't like the growth, if you talk to them for a little while and say, what do you not like about growth? It's the fact that transportation has really slowed down. Traffic is a problem. It's the most important thing that everyone's saying, that everyone's talking about, the most important thing. So that's what we need to deal with first. And with those opportunities of dealing with ITD and ACHD, where I've worked with them for the past 8 years, and I have a good working relationship with them, I can move the roads forward fast. It's very important on the relationship. In my position in the legislature, I have had to deal with 260 highway districts across the state of Idaho, and believe me, they do not all get along with ITD, and they don't all get along with any of the money that's transferred between them or how it works. And I've had to run between them over and over and over. Those relationships are extremely important, and if you have a good working relationship with them, then you can move those transportation issues forward, just like we have with Highway 16. Now that we're moving forward on buying that land, as soon as the land is bought, the legislature will have the way and the mechanisms to move forward in getting the roads done. And it won't be done overnight. It's not going to be done. We may have more grandchildren. I may have more grandchildren by the time it's done. I hope so. The fact is, you cannot put together a $300 million project when our whole state's budget is only $6 billion, all in one area overnight. We have to spread that money out. But they can do it to Ustick, and then they can do it to McMillan, and then they can finish it out. But just the overpass alone is a huge expense to get off the freeway. But it can get done, and if we don't start on it now, it won't. And that is important, and we need to have those relationships for that. Excuse me.
Robert Simison.
Well, I'm glad to see Joe and I are talking to the same people out there in the community, because they start with growth, but when you drill down, it's transportation. That is what most people are most upset about and sees a challenge. So how do we go about solving it? Well, first, I hope to work with Joe while he's still in the legislature, that we can work together to solve those issues. I'm glad I got a little bit of a laugh, but it's serious. If we really want to solve this, it is working together. And so when I win, I hope that we can lock arms to help solve the transportation issues that we have in Meridian by working together, because that's what it's going to take. But it's not just working with the state. And I'm going to borrow something from Shaun, speed of business. Private development. We worked with private development in the early 2000s on improvements in North Meridian. They can do it faster, they can do it cheaper. So we need to look at where we can work on those public-private partnerships with our development community to make improvements in our road infrastructure. They can do it, they can build those intersections, they can build the roadways, and they can get paid back from fees from ACHD. If they're not willing to do it in all those locations, the city needs to step up and do it. I think we have about $20 million as a city that we can go invest in transportation improvements in our community. It won't get us a lot, but it will give us some. We can focus on north-south corridors that would include Locust Grove, Linder, maybe out to Black Cat, where we can find the road areas where we want to make a targeted investment to improve traffic through those areas. And then we can do what development does. We can work with ACHD, and they can pay us back in time. So long as we get the money back before we need it for the things that we've been saving for, that's a better investment of our money where we can today see real returns on that.
Shaun Wardle.
Growth in Meridian is out of control, and I believe that is our greatest challenge. Growth brings traffic, increases crime, and is challenging our community. And I'm concerned about growth paying its fair share. There are many in our community that for generations have been paying for roads and schools and fire stations. And those that move in pay exactly the same tax rate that we do. I propose that if you move in from out of state, that you wait 3 years for your homeowner's exemption.
And Little Roberts.
Well, I think that would be a wonderful idea if it was in the city's hands, but unfortunately, $100,000 homeowner's exemption is run through the state. So otherwise, I would say that is a marvelous idea. I think that our biggest issue that we're seeing out of growth in the city is the unintended consequences from the growth. We are all concerned about traffic. It is very frustrating. But beyond that, I think our biggest need is to make sure that we continue getting longer, and we've got to make sure that we have got fire stations and police as close to the people as possible, because when you need them, they need to be there as quickly as possible. We're opening our first fire station in 10 years. It takes 3 to 5 years to even get a fire station open. So we've got to immediately turn around and start working on the next one. We've also got to make sure that our police are staffed. They need at least 20 to 25 new officers. They're diligently working on that, but that is not an easy process. You've got to make sure that the officers can work well with our existing team, and it's critical as we move forward to make sure that we are a safe city so that we can continue to enjoy all the wonderful amenities that make it such a wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family.
Our next question, 2 minutes to respond. What changes do you anticipate making to the budget? Joe Palmer, 2 minutes.
I would go to every director and ask them in which ways can you save money and start looking for it. I think it's imperative that we start going down that road. The directors are the ones that are going to be closest to those budgets, and they can make those decisions. I think if they have the right leadership and the right desire to do the things that we need to do, and sometimes those are hard things, I think they can go down that road. We have seen over and over when the economy changes. We've been in the highest growth rate in the history of the United States for 9 years. There's no way that this is going to continue on. And when it does slow down, the city needs to be prepared for that. They need to be able to sustain the things that we have, the assets that we have, and they need to be able to take care of police and fire. It's going to happen. We need to be prepared for it. So I think that as we work through those directors, we have great people that work for the city of Meridian. I think they can find ways to save money as long as they're encouraged to do that instead of growing government.
Robert Simison.
Our budget is our investment in our community. I think it starts with, if we want a safe community, if we want officers who are in our subdivisions and not just going from call to call to call, that we need to be making investments in those people that we need to have on the streets. So what does that budget look like? Well, that budget looks like making sure we maintain our service levels. That's the number one thing. If that can be done with a flat budget, that's great. If it requires hiring additional officers, building another fire station, which we know we will need, and hire those people, then we're going to have to make those investments. Hiring additional officers, building another fire station, which we know we will need, and hire those people, then we're going to have to make those investments from that perspective. We can always look for areas that we either don't like or would like to see improvements made when it comes to budget. But things like overtime, those are a cost of doing business. If it's your family and our police officers are there and they're helping you or your family through what may be the worst experience you've ever had in your life, and the police officer says, "Shift's up, I'm leaving, I'm on overtime," that's not how people want to be treated. That's not the services that they expect. So we do need to rely upon our directors to make sure they're keeping a good eye on their budgets that are prudent for the services that we provide. The one thing that I think that we can do in terms of looking at the budget is if there's an opportunity to make investments with our budget in roads, sidewalks, pathways, we need to make more of an investment in our city using those funds.
Shaun Wardle.
The city of Meridian needs a turnaround. It needs a fresh set of eyes on all things in the budget, but it also needs somebody that can execute those plans. And that's why I'm running to be the CEO of the city. To put a fresh set of eyes on departments. Are we doubling up on services and jobs that we could make efficiencies and serve our community better? Can we use technology to do things that help our citizens? And we talk a little bit about things that I wouldn't do. We've got some overspending issues. We talk about overtime. In 2018, the city of Meridian had $1.25 million in overtime. I think that's overspending and would look very, very closely at that. What are some of the other things that we're doing? If you attended the city's budget hearing this year, you'll know that the mayor and council raised taxes, $400,000, to put in a new bus route. And I would look and ask, is that the most efficient use of our city dollars to start funding buses which currently are empty? We've got to continue to drive not just efficiency, but level of service and use business skills to help our citizens.
And Little Roberts.
I did vote for our current budget. I think it was well thought out. I actually voted after an enhancement to add 3 police officers and 2 more cars because I believe that that is critical for the safety of our citizens. We go through our budget very, very diligently. I think it is a process that is well thought out and has got to continue to be well thought out, working directly with our directors to make sure that it's the most efficient budget for the people. Will those things change as our economy changes? Absolutely. We do have to be prepared for the future and what it can bring regarding a dip in our economy. But we've got to stay strong in our areas of fire and police. I think it's critical. We also have to watch each and every penny that we spend because it is very, very important to me and to us that we know how those dollars are spent and that it's best spent for the citizens.
Jeana Johnson.
One thing I would do is I would make sure that the recently passed budget does one particular change. We reverse the decision to raise the mayor's salary. It's $90,000 right now, and it'll be $92,000 in the starting term for whoever is elected. I believe that is unfair to the people because you don't necessarily need $90,000, let alone $92,000 to be mayor. You need to be understanding that the people who elected you are the people that want you to represent them. So why don't be above them, be with them. I propose that if I became mayor, I would make sure, if I could, I've already talked to many of the legal staff here, that the mayor's salary should be the middle income. So basically the average income of whoever is in a 2-person household. Meridian residents want accountability, and they need a mayor that understands that money isn't everything, at least for them, but also for their citizens. So I would make sure that budgets are ran by the directors that for each department, but at the same time, we don't turn off new ideas. We need to look at how we have already what our current budget is and make sure that it's a little bit more efficient. We don't necessarily have to increase taxes, which I'm not planning to, and we don't necessarily need to cut. We just need to really consider what we already have and look at what we can do a little bit different that may be a little bit better.
Ladies and gentlemen, this final question will also serve as your final statement for the night. This will be the final answer. You have a 1-minute response to the question, what is your 10-year vision for Meridian? In 60 seconds. Robert Simison.
10-year vision is that we are a premier community. We have parks aplenty that are well-maintained. They provide all the amenities that our residents want. That may be dog parks. That may be pickleball courts. I don't know, but we're a safe community. We maintain our safe levels that our police and fire currently have, that we're debt-free, something we continue to be to this day throughout this time frame, that we're a more connected community, that we have sidewalks that connect, that we have 4-way stops, they're all gone, and they have nice big intersections for people to get through them, and we've doubled our pathways. We have a new community center. We have a more vibrant downtown. You get it all with me, people, so let's just keep going that direction.
Shaun Wardle.
Meridian in 10 years. Meridian is truly a great place to live, to work, to raise a family, and it continues to be. But we've got to focus on fixing our issues, like traffic and congestion. And we need to continue to grow the park system. And we have got to focus on our downtown core. Again, we're started, but we've got to catch up and make sure that we've got an innovative place for businesses to grow. And we've got to make sure that we continue to have opportunities for our children. Jobs, great jobs. When I was a kid, the governor said, our greatest export is children, is our children, Idaho's children, and he was right. I was fortunate enough to come and work in a family business, but we don't necessarily, my friends, when they graduated from college, they couldn't necessarily find jobs here. So I think that we need to grow those jobs, grow our community, keep our city safe.
Thank you very much. Ann Little Roberts.
We are a wonderful place to live, and I continue to see that we are in 10 years, that wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family. And by doing that, we've got to enhance our safety, make sure we maintain a safe place to live, work, and play. We've got to bring livable wage jobs. We've got to work more collaborative with those across the valley so that we have those higher paying jobs coming to Meridian. We've got to be that place where our children want to come back. My son is going to college in Phoenix right now. I want to see Meridian be that place that my son and your sons and daughters and grandchildren want to come back or stay and be in Meridian.
Jeana Johnson.
Well, I definitely don't see myself as a person in politics in 10 years, but I can tell you that Meridian in 10 years is going to be completely different, hopefully. I can't guarantee that, but that's my hope. We need a place that current people here, as well as future residents and tourists, can enjoy. But we also need to have a place for people to enjoy comfortably. We have to make sure that everyone has a job. But at the same time, if they don't want a job or they're retired from work, they are enjoying what they love here. We need to be able to have transportation that works. We need to be able to have opportunities for everyone in every field. We don't need to become the next Seattle or Silicon Valley, but we need to be able to bridge opportunities for everyone. That includes the cost of living, the ability to afford different forms of homes and renting, but at the same time, we need someone who understands.
Joe Palmer.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to see Meridian a lot different. I want to keep Meridian Meridian. I don't want it to be a part of metropolitan Boise. Meridian is Meridian. We need to keep its distinction. It's a family, value-oriented place. I want it to keep it the same. And I guess I get to be the last word, so you don't need to worry. I have lots of friends still in the legislature that I'll be able to work with as I sit in this chair. Thank you.
Actually, I have the last word. Politicians sometimes forget that. Thank you very much to all of our candidates. Thank you very much, mayoral candidates. We really appreciate your time.